once the biggest games on Roblox, but they're all slowly dying out. Today, we're going to be looking at 5 more current popular games that are starting to die out. A Dusty Trip was launched in early 2024 by the developer Dixmean. It started off slow, but to their surprise, their TikToks on the game are going viral, so it started to gain some traction. It started gaining a few thousand active, then 10,000, and eventually was averaging around 50 to 100,000 active players, now sitting at over 1.6 billion visits in just over a year. This game took over Roblox, but that wouldn't last for long, and every month the game just started losing more and more players, from averaging around 50 to 100,000 to now averaging around 10,000 active, around an 80% decrease. To understand what happened, let's ask the players. Firstly though, if you aren't aware, a Dusty Trip is a game in which your objective is to make it as far as possible. You spawn in and build a car, and you drive for as long as you can while encountering obstacles and buildings on your journey.
How long have you been playing a Dusty Trip?
2 years.
Oh wow, so since the start.
Pretty much, yeah.
Have you noticed the game losing players?
Yes.
How come?
Everything cost money.
So it seems like due to the game adding a bunch of monetization, players got sick of it and left. Let's investigate deeper to find the truth. This game was created by Dixmean alongside some other developers. They were all fans of another game called The Long Drive and heavily inspired the Dusty Trip. When it launched due to the TikToks, the game already had an audience and it continued blowing up from this point on. This was their first real big breakthrough, so it was a surreal moment for everyone involved. But it wouldn't last for much longer. Just after a month, the developer would make a huge mistake, which eventually explains the game's downfall. They were approached by another popular developer, Jandel, who wanted to buy the game for $20,000. This was life-changing money to the developers, and since they're all young and inexperienced, they accepted the offer. They didn't have a way of receiving the money though, so they agreed on 5 million Robux instead. The developers were on top of the world. They had a viral game and sold it for life-changing money, but sadly, the developers would end up regretting this. Just after a few months after Jandel took over is when the game really started going viral. See, Jandel does this a lot, and he's involved in a ton of projects such as Grow a Garden, Wacky Withers, and much more. However, Jandel and his team also heavily monetized this game by adding limited skins, loot boxes, and much more, which a lot of players hated and think ruined the game. As you saw, players recognize this and don't like it. After seeing how successful the game became, and also how people think it got ruined, the original developers started regretting selling it. Firstly, these developers actually lost all their money. In a TikTok, they explained that the account that had the 5 million Robux ended up getting terminated. So not only did these devs sell their viral game, they also lost all the money with it as well. They then made more sad TikToks saying they regret their decision and missed the game. On a brighter note, they are working on a new similar game, so these devs still have motivation to try again. Only time will tell if they have another hit game. Overall, we've seen this happen a lot in the past, where games get bought and ruined by the new owners. Fish is a good example of this, where players got sick of all the pay-to-win elements, so they stopped playing, and that game is dying out. Another reason can be the game getting repetitive. There's an incentive to keep playing to try to get a high score, but once you get far enough, there doesn't seem to be much to do anymore. The player I spoke to confirmed this.
Are you sad to see it dying, or did you expect it?
I thought it would last a bit longer, but these games get boring.
They have added maps, game modes, and more to try to make the game feel more fresh, but in the end of the day, the concept never really changes. So many people probably got bored and left, in combination with all the heavy monetization. Sadly too, it seems like players give up hope for this game.
Do you think this game will come back?
Probably not. New ones like this keep coming out.
This player brings up another potential reason. Due to the rise in popularity of this game, a ton of knockoffs have been made. However, these attract an audience since players who got bored play these instead, since it offers something new and fresh. A pretty crazy story, but our next story is even crazier. Because we're talking about Bed Wars, which is over 10.4 billion visits, but it's been slowly dying out over time and losing players, going from around 70,000 to now averaging around 20,000 concurrent players, around a 60 to 70% decrease. How does a game this big and popular die out? Well, let's ask the players to see what happened. Bed Wars is a game in which you defend your bed from other players, and the goal is to destroy everyone else's bed and be the last one standing. You can get upgrades, kits, there's different game modes, and much more.
You've been playing Bed Wars for years.
Yeah.
Have you noticed it losing players over time?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Because it's getting repetitive and people are growing up.
This player made a good point. This game has been around for a few years now, and despite different game modes, kits, and more, the concept of the game never really changes. So it seems like over time, more and more people just got bored and moved on. Let's investigate deeper to see if there's another reason. This game was made by the Easy.gg game studio back in 2021. Early on in the beta release, the game already had a ton of hype, averaging over 10,000 players and already getting over 200,000 visits. See, this game was heavily inspired from an iconic Minecraft minigame called, well, Bed Wars, and since this was a recreation along with unique aspects, it attracted a large audience who remember the Minecraft version. From this point on, the game exploded and took over Roblox. It's the 9th most visited game on all of Roblox, but despite growing into one of the biggest games on Roblox, it's just been losing more and more players every year. Another reason could be the updates. The game does update frequently, but if the players don't like them, it's only ruining the game even more.
Are the updates not good enough?
Meh, they're mid.
Overall, it seems like over time, people just got bored due to how repetitive it is and moved on. Even with new stuff, the concept is the same thing over and over again, and the updates probably didn't add enough to get them excited to play again. This game still kept a strong fan base, but our next game's fan base is turning on them. Royale High is a roleplay game that has over 10 billion visits, but the game is fully dying out. This game used to be everywhere, but it's kind of disappeared. It went from averaging 70 to 100,000 active players to now only averaging around 5,000, a over 90% decrease, but it gets worse. The game used to get a ton of likes compared to dislikes as usual, but now if we look, it's getting more dislikes and likes every day, and the like percentage is rapidly dropping. So not only is this game fully dying out, but the community also seems to be turning on the game. Where did it all go wrong for Royale High? Let's see if the players have the answer.
How long have you been playing Royale High?
I don't really play much, but I joined it since 2017.
Have you noticed the game dying over time?
Yeah, since I saw videos over controversy over the game.
What went wrong?
It was probably cause of some deleted stuff or some deleted badges of people that was made for them.
So it seems like the game's been involved in a ton of drama. Let's investigate to find the truth. Royale High was made by Call Me Bob, who joined Roblox all the way back in 2007. Early on, they launched some random games that showed they had a passion for development. Overall though, they remained pretty quiet for the first few years and didn't have a viral game. It would take 10 years since he joined for them to work and launch Royale High, not knowing this would change their life forever. It would explode on launch. In just 1 year, the game already had tens of thousands of active players and over 200 million visits. Even though it was just a roleplay game, they had super unique customization that no other Roblox game had, so it really stood out. The developers on top of the world, and Royale High would go on to become one of the biggest Roblox games ever made, sitting at over 10 billion visits. The first few years, everything went great, but over time, the game started dying, and now the game's lost most of its audience. As a player mentioned, the game has a ton of drama within its community. One of the biggest turning points was when they removed a popular YouTuber's badge from the game. If you don't know, they have badges for meeting YouTubers. However, they removed Call Me Haley's badge for criticizing the game. And from this point on, a lot of YouTubers and players quit and started playing other games like Dress to Impress. This explains why the game's getting a bunch of hate and dislikes. It's because they treated their community poorly, so their community started turning on them. But there's more to why this game lost over 90% of its players. This YouTuber here explained that a lot of the updates started focusing on making the game look better instead of gameplay, so the updates didn't really make the game more fun. They also monetized a lot of stuff going forward, which made it annoying for new players to do much. Overall, due to bad updates, drama, and more, the community for this game has just been leaving, causing the game to fully die out. A crazy ending, but our next story is even crazier. Because it's the at one point biggest game on Roblox, Adopt Me, a roleplay game where you can adopt other players, pets, trade, customize your home, and much more. This game has over 39.5 billion visits, but it's just been losing hype in players over time, constantly averaging over 100,000 concurrent players to now around 50,000. It's still not doing the worst, but every year it loses more players, and in general it gets talked about less in the Roblox community. It also lost its spot as the biggest game on Roblox to their competitors. What happened to this game over time? Let's see what the players have to say.
How long have you been playing Adopt Me?
For years. I honestly don't remember, but it's been a while now.
Have you noticed the game losing players over time?
Yeah, kinda.
What happened?
I honestly don't know.
So a lot of players recognize the game has been dying out over time, but don't really know what went wrong. So I asked some other players to see if they had an answer.
How long have you been playing Adopt Me?
About 3 years.
Have you noticed it lose players over the years?
Yeah, a lot.
Why? What happened?
People get scammed a lot, so they stop playing.
So it seems like Adopt Me is a major scamming issue, leading to many players quitting. Let's investigate. It all starts with the creator Newfissy, who joined Roblox all the way back in January 2011. For the first few years he was quiet, but eventually started releasing games. He would launch game after game, however most projects failed. Some did well, but overall he didn't have a big Roblox game just yet. And it would be like that for the next few years, but 2016 is where it started to shift. He had his first big hit in Treelands, and the next year, using everything he learned, him and another developer, B-Think, started working on Adopt Me, not knowing this would change their lives forever. In just a few months, the game would explode in popularity, getting over 10,000 constant active players and getting over 70 million visits. A year later, it would hit over 550 million visits. Every year, the game just kept growing bigger and bigger, largely due to updates adding crucial stuff to the game like pets. It eventually became the biggest game on Roblox. 2020, due to circumstances, was the peak of this game. It would always have over 400,000 active users. They were breaking records, breaking Roblox, and were unstoppable. But from this point on, every year, the game started losing more and more players. What the player said was true. Adopt Me does have a huge scamming problem, which probably caused a lot of players to leave. But also, it seems like over time, people just got bored and moved on. Adopt Me couldn't really maintain the hype and momentum from 2020. They did add a lot, but it seems like most people got bored of roleplay and such, which is what the game is built around. The game is really centered around trading now. Almost every single server you join, there's no roleplay happening, it's all just people trading. And then with the scamming issue, you see why so many players leave. Also, due to the rise in popularity, many think the game became a cash grab since they have so much stuff you can buy now. People got bored, scammed, or just lost interest over time, causing this game to lose its players. Our next game is another massive game that lost popularity. Because it's Doors, a game which has over 6.5 billion visits but has been losing players over time. It went from averaging 60 to 70,000 active players constantly to now around 10 to 15,000 players, around an 80% decrease. Let's see what the players have to say.
Have you been playing Doors for a while?
A little?
Have you noticed it losing players?
Yes.
What happened to the game?
Updates. Need more updates.
Did it get boring over time?
Yes. I stopped playing a year ago.
The answer here seems pretty obvious. Doors was launched in 2021 by two developers, Lightning Splash and Redibles. Before Doors, they both teamed up to make Ragdoll Universe, their first hit together as the game got over 46 million visits. These devs clearly knew what they were doing, and also realized they worked well together, so they used all their experience to create and launch Doors. They were already successful developers, but this game would grow bigger than they could have ever imagined. Right away it became a hit due to how unique it was, and it started going viral. It launched in 2021, and by the end of 2022, a year later, it already gained over 1 billion visits and had around 80 to 100,000 active players. Early on though, there's a huge problem. See, most Roblox games this big have an entire team of developers behind it, but Doors is only around 3 developers handling everything. At the start, it's just those 2 main developers doing everything, so they struggled to keep up with the demand, and their game started dying as they couldn't bring out updates quickly, and the cycle continued to where we are now. Doors still has barely had many major updates, and it takes them a long time to release major updates, and since the game is kind of the same thing over and over again, people got bored and moved on. To be fair, this game does always spike up when they eventually do update, but it's in a constant cycle of dying, getting some hype back, and dying again since the next update takes so long. Also, since they struggled to get on major updates when their game started going viral, they failed to keep everyone engaged, and most people probably just played to see what the hype's about and left. There also seems to be less hype for every update since people got tired of waiting, and when the update did eventually release, they already stopped caring about the game. Overall, Roblox games are constantly dying. It's a cycle we've seen happen a ton, and that's just how it goes. Nothing lasts forever. These games all had their moments, which most developers will never have, so the game's dying out isn't a bad thing. It's bound to happen eventually. Some die naturally over time, some die out due to drama, some die out for being too repetitive. Everyone's situation is different. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and like.